Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
Well, we're back. Another episode of Long Range Pursuit Podcast.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Calling this a awesome. Instructor's Corner. I guess we've got two instructors, so we better call it that.
Yeah.
We're not really doing instructor things right now.
Yeah.
We've been doing fun things.
It's fall, so it's hunting season.
Yeah.
And there's been stuff dying.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. So,
well, for some lucky few. Some of us are very unlucky in the draws. And
well, you got kids with some tags.
I do.
Right?
I've been blessed to be out with the kids quite a bit lately.
Have you guys knocked anything over yet, or
nothing? Couple close calls in the archery with some bull elk, and then obviously the rifle season started this last week, but it rained on us for 3 days.
It was kind of nasty for a few days.
Yeah, and I did probably the big sin of a father taking a first time daughter out and kept her out a little too long.
Yeah, that can
maybe
burn
hiked her a little too far. She was a little reluctant to go back out the second day, and so this weekend, we'll have to see. I might have pushed it a little too hard.
That's a tricky one, right? And I think a lot of dads have run into that where it's like my kids are just not quite that age yet where we've dragged them along on like a couple antelope hunts. Yeah. But I can see myself getting into that same scenario if I'm not careful. So
yeah, the real hard part is my son Hunter, teenager in football, super in shape, willing to go into any deep dark hole with his dad. Right. We're willing to go, and it's really hard to take them both at the same time, because they're in different stages. I tend to want to follow Hunter, right? Hunter's lead, right, and push pretty hard. But I got to remember, my daughter, she's, I got to step back a little bit. So it's been a new, interesting learning curve for me, in all the years of hunting, to try to balance this out and make it work, so that she continues to want to, be out there, hunting and so we'll see. Hopefully I can figure it out.
My oldest is 8, and maybe it's a little early still, but I've even considered getting him into hunter safety. I think he's sharp enough that he could do all of it. And it's still way too young to hunt here in Wyoming, but there's other places. We could go to Texas.
Idaho's 10.
Idaho's 10. Really?
Yeah. You can get a mentor. You can do a mentor license.
So they don't actually even have to have the hunter safety at that point.
Correct. Yeah, you sign a mentor tag, and then whatever tag you have, you can mentor them, and they can take the same game.
So, anyway, we talked a little bit about hunter safety. I mean, he's a good kid's a good shot, but. It's like I can tell he's interested, but it sounds a little adult and scary still too, and so it's like trying to ease into that a little bit.
Well, I would say on the hunter safety side, the sooner the better, because I ran into a little bit of a problem this year. So Madison, my youngest, it's her first year, drew a good tag. So obviously, we signed up for 4 hunter safety courses, and they all got canceled because we live in a pretty small community, and if there's not so many kids, they cancel them. So I thought I was in pretty big trouble. I thought I didn't know what I was going to do, and
it's not they don't run them every other week.
No.
Here,
there
right?
was 4 within 100 miles of us, and I signed up for all 4, and all 4 got canceled, and so it was coming down to the end of July. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I called the Game and Fish, and luckily, Wyoming has a mentor program for the hunter safety. So for up to 2 years, you can mentor a new hunter with just trying to see if they want to do it or not before they actually get their hunter safety. So I totally lucked out. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I would say, just on the fact that get it done early, and if you have to take a refresher course, go pick it up again, maybe a little closer to when they start to hunt, it would be a good idea. But just get it done so that you have that number and you're good to go. Because I just about messed up as a dad. So she had a good tag, and
shame of a tag to go to waste.
We just had to sit back.
Rough. So I mean, nowadays you can do it online, right? I think my wife did hers like online, and then there's just a range day that you have to do. At least here in Wyoming.
Yeah, you have to still certify with an instructor. To some degree, but most of it can be done online.
Gotcha.
But so just a heads up out there for all you dads. Or moms, whichever.
Good to know for sure.
Pretty sure you give it a couple weeks, Jeremy will have a story.
Yeah.
Season's not over.
No, it's it's October 5 as of recording. So
October 5. Gosh dang, it's 20th. Yeah, the 20th. I think is the last day. So so we got a couple weekends left, and so we're gonna switch things up a little bit. My brother, luckily, he's He's gung ho. I think we're going to split the kids up. I'm going to send Michael with him, or Hunter with my brother Michael, and then I'm going to take Madison. And we're going to try double teaming it a little bit, maybe separating them so we can do a couple different paces.
Not bad.
So we'll see. We'll
Very
see.
Cool.
Lots of grizzlies still though.
Yeah,
we've seen 3.
Have you?
So far? Yep. So
I did a couple days solo in Grizz country this weekend, and that always, like, you can only take so much exposure, you know. And luckily, really infested area. I didn't see any tracks. Never sighted one. At least this weekend. Other trips have been very different. But that's kind of a relief sometimes when you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, it's good and bad. Yeah. It keeps a lot of people out of the areas, so it makes the hunting a little better, in my opinion. But you definitely have to be on your toes and mind your P's and Q's when you're camping and keeping the food and toiletries and stuff out of your stuff. And, if you do the right things, I've never had just too much of a wreck yet.
Bear smart type stuff, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bears, I think the real reason we're here is Brian had a pretty awesome experience recently.
Yeah.
You're an Alaskan native, I guess, right? Or grew up in Alaska. I grew up in Alaska, right? Yeah. So transplant. Sounds like you finally got a chance to get back and tick one off the list that's been been on there for a while, huh?
Because my dad was a hunting guide when I was a kid growing up. So honestly, I never really got to hunt with my dad because he was
too
always
busy hunting. Yeah,
during hunting season,
right?
And maybe we get a couple days to chase moose or something. Yeah, right at the end of the season. So the past few years, now that my dad's pretty much retired from hunting, I've been trying to get up there and, number one, go hunt with my dad. Number two, take advantage of that first degree of kindred, not needing a hunting guide so I can hunt, the species that I would need a hunting guide with. So, the last time I went up there was actually 5 years ago, and I had a grizzly tag. My dad's hunting for a meat moose. Of course, I'm looking for a grizzly, and this story kind of comes full circle, but literally the first 30 minutes that we were set up on a ridge watching a salmon spawning hole. There was about a 7.5 foot grizz out there that probably could have gotten if we decided to make a move on him. He hung out there for like an hour.
Right.
But he had a radio collar on him, which he would have been rubbed around the neck. Hey, we just got here. We're gonna see a ton of bears. It started raining like the next day. And within a couple of days, it had washed all the salmon away. We saw bears for a couple of days, but that was it.
Really?
And we literally went another 2 weeks without seeing another grizzly. Wow. And eventually my dad, knocked over his moose. We worked the gut pile for a bit. Nothing ever got on it, so I went home empty-handed.
This was years back.
This was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
This year, went back up and same basic plan. We're hunting completely different drainage. My dad spends more of his time in town.
Sure.
And when I say town, this is the town of 30 people.
Yeah.
That's 60 miles from his cabin. So the area around there we just don't know as well.
Yeah.
So this river drainage we went up. My dad had gone up at this summer sheep hunting, but I'd never been this far up this river drainage. And so, I got up there, and really there's kind of two parts to this story. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here.
Sure.
When I went up there, I wanted to bring my dad a new rifle. I wanted to surprise my dad with a new rifle. Working here at Gunwerks, we got pretty generous employee program here. So I felt like I was in a position that, hey, I can buy my dad a rifle.
Yeah.
So I built him a 30 Nosler, like virtually identical to mine except for the stock color.
Okay.
So you can tell them apart.
Right.
And just showed up there. Hey, Dad, check out my new rifle. Opened up the gun case. I had both rifles in the same gun case, all wrapped up in my hunting clothing. Had taken the foam out and, hey, check it out. And, oh, hey, what do you know? There's a second one here. So nice. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So, of course, we went out and shot it, and he's pretty stoked. This is to replace the, wall of 30-06s, 338s, 375 H&H, an old 300 Win Mag. And he's always been into very accurate custom guns. And he was long before laser rangefinders were a thing. He would carry a tape measure with him and measure the length, chest to butt of anything he had down.
So he knew.
So he was really good at milling out Dall sheep.
And
getting a range on that 500 to 600 yard range. He was pretty deadly.
Right.
And then if you had clients that could shoot that far, he could get them a range long before laser rangefinders.
That's cool.
We're out.
OG, right?
Yeah.
Straight up.
That's awesome. He started guiding up there in 1969, I believe.
Dang. Yeah, he's been at it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so, so I got him the rifle. So we're headed out, and we decided just to run the boat out of town there. And his his favored means of transportation, which is kind of different than a lot of folks up there, which will run pretty big river boats. So he runs a little 18-foot Grumman canoe. Okay. With an outboard, a little 10-horse outboard and a lift on it. And it's pretty slow going up some of those rivers.
Right.
But boy, you can get way up
there.
A lot of those tributaries.
Way more maneuverable.
Yeah. So it pays off, and he can get to places where nobody else can get.
That's cool.
So it's kind of the Western equivalent of having that ultimate side-by-side with tracks on it versus the guy that's trying to get out there in a Tahoe.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, Brian. So I saw the pictures that you sent.
Yeah.
And I saw the little canoe and thought,
fitting a moose in there.
Well, I thought, they tie this to a big boat and took a big boat in, and then they're just running these tributaries. I did not know.
Yeah. That's it.
Maybe we can sneak these pictures in. I'm not sure if we can, but this little canoe loaded up did not look safe to me. Brian, I don't. No offense, but
we were joking about it.
I couldn't believe there was place for you two to sit. When the pile, it was so big. I'm thinking, they're just going to go a little ways to a big boat.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
This is Alaska. Safe is subjective, right?
Yeah, I could. That's interesting.
We probably ran that thing about, I don't know. When you count river miles, we probably ran up about 40 river miles.
Yeah.
Which got us about 20 miles out of town as a crow flies.
Sure.
Just because the way the rivers wind around and stuff. But that was running up river was about a 7 to 8 hour trip.
Yeah.
To get those 40 miles. So our whole first day is just getting up to, a place my dad had kind of thought was a pretty good bend to camp on, had some good swamps behind it, and just, had some hills where you can do some glassing, which for moose, that's really important. You have to be able to get up high and spot them. So we got there, and we had the boat. We weren't dependent on an airplane, so you bought a nice canvas wall tent. It was like a 10 by 13 canvas wall tent. And we're sitting in there one night. He's like, I was just thinking about it. I got this tent in 1970.
Oh,
wow.
He very rarely does he run a big enough camp that he ever used it.
Sure.
So it probably didn't really get used that much, because he stopped horseback hunting when he was, after the first couple of years.
Yeah.
But he said that tent. So, the fact that we had a big enough tent, and if you're running a Coleman stove and a Coleman lantern in there, it gets fairly warm. We had a wood stove if it got really cold.
Yeah.
And, so you can dry your stuff out at night.
Yeah.
And it rained. Never really bad, but it rained literally every day we were there.
Yeah.
So being able to dry your stuff out was pretty
nice.
Big.
Yeah.
And so, we get up there. I guess the first 2 days, actually the first night we got in the camp, we could hear a moose grunting back behind camp there. And then I put the spotting scope on a mountain and pretty quickly picked up a couple bulls. And then there was a cow over there. Then, the other bull's coming in, and you could see the big bull, heard him coming in and went like uphill of him, and then was like dropping down. As it's getting dark, I didn't see when they met each other. It got too dark.
Yeah.
But he was definitely like, okay, I'm going to go up above you. I'm going to come down from above.
Yeah.
Their chase you away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so the third day, we got up on the hillside and it was really foggy, and it had been raining that morning. So we literally sat in camp just waiting for the rain to stop for probably an extra hour, extra pot of coffee, and then, all right, rain stopped. Let's go up on the mountain. So we hiked up, probably 500 feet, and it fogged in so bad. We sat there in a fog for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, just couldn't see anything. So we're just hanging out, and then fog kind of lifted a little bit, and there's this, grassy slough that's about a half on the bend, but like half a mile behind where we camped there. And there was 2 bull moose out in the middle of it. And, hopefully we can connect some video, because I got some pretty cool video through the spotting scope of these two.
Yeah.
And the smaller one, which is what my dad wanted, he wants a smaller moose for
meat.
Meat, they're just not as tough.
Right.
You can completely see in his body language, he's kind of getting bullied by this bigger moose, which had probably been his buddy like a couple days ago. And you can completely see in his body language, he's like, dude, I thought we were friends, man. What's going on here? So, so we dropped down to the canoe, jumped in the canoe, went about half a mile or so, tied it up to the bank, and worked our way in there, and they're still both in this clearing. We hear them splashing around the water, hear one of them, raking willows with his antlers, and we kind of work our way out to the edge of the clearing, and it was like a 75-yard shot. My dad, he was moving right to left. My dad was waiting to the last possible moment before he was going to go out of sight, hoping he'd get out of the water.
Yeah.
Because you could hear him splashing, so you could tell that, everything up there's under a little bit of water.
Yeah.
And, he did the high lung shot, with the 30 Nosler and shooting 200 grain Hornady LDXs.
Yeah.
And that thing just dropped. It was just
awesome.
a complete, like he literally stood up on his back legs. So he got like 10 feet tall.
Dang.
And then like tipped over to the side.
Yeah. That's cool.
It just dropped him, so we went out there and we ended up in about 1.5 feet of water.
Yeah.
So
better than 10 feet of water.
Oh, he's joking. He's like, man, I just did what I
tell
yelled
every
at clients for
not
doing.
to. Yeah.
Don't ever shoot a moose in the water, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So we got him cleaned up and packed out. It was
Yeah.
only about I don't know, probably like 300 yards to the riverbank or something like that. So
Yeah.
we got it all done that night, and got him back. And it's funny, we were talking about bears. And it's just the complete different in the grizzly bear mentality up in Alaska versus here, where they've just completely learned not to fear us.
Yeah.
Our meat pole was 30 yards from our tent.
Yeah.
Our food is inside the tent with us. Like my dad always used to say, I'm putting that stuff in my tent so I can protect it. If I leave it out there, something might get it, and I'll be
a little bit different
hungry.
mentality.
So it's just a complete different mentality.
That's funny.
On how bears act up there. The density's a lot less.
Yeah.
And so, so now we're going to shift, gears to grizzly bear hunting.
Yeah.
And, there's really your hunting food sources is what you're doing.
Sure.
And, if you have a good salmon run, you're going to pick a part of the river that has, some salmon spawning, and that's all the bears going to congregate there. So didn't have that this year.
Yeah.
The salmon run was dismal from what I understand. And then if you get a lot of rain early in the spring, according to the Eskimos, you'll have a pretty good berry crop.
Okay.
They didn't have any rain early in the spring, and there was almost no blueberries, almost no cranberries. So, the mountainsides and the flats where you'd normally be able to glass up grizzly bears, hanging out in the berry patch for a whole day at a time.
Sure. Pretty.
We didn't have that. So really one of the main food sources left is what they call an Eskimo potato. And it's basically this plant that grows in like sandy river bars.
Okay.
And if you go along the riverbanks there, you'll see it looks like lunar landscape where it's just hole after hole after hole where the bears have been digging up these plants.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's like a
roots, which are
tuber root.
Yeah, it's like a tubular root that's almost like a potato.
Yeah.
And so we were really focused on just hunting riverbanks. And then, of course, we had the gut pile.
Yeah.
So we're occasionally going to check that and hope something gets on it. So I think we spent one day, it's just a long day sitting where you can see, basically 800 yards in each direction of pretty prime riverbank that's got a lot of the Eskimo potato on it and nothing.
Yeah.
And then I think the next day it really started getting serious about raining. So we lost about a day and a half sitting in the tent.
Yeah.
Where it was just, not so much for the rain, but with the fog
It's just
that
not
comes
effective.
with it, you
right?
can't see anything.
Yeah.
You can see, a few hundred yards. And I think towards evening on that second day, the rain kind of died off. So we decided, let's at least go check the bait or check the gut pile. I shouldn't say bait. It was a gut pile. And so we looped around. Nothing had disturbed it, but the kind of the hillside that overlooks it that we're going to have to shoot from is a couple hundred yards away. It's just all overgrown with aspens and, actually more birch, I think it was. And so I said, I'm going to cut a couple trees and just make myself some shooting lanes here because it's really hard to see out there. And so I busted out the saw, chopped down a couple trees. Well, that big moose had been with him. He's still hanging around.
Yeah.
And so he heard this crashing. And so he comes out and he's just posturing and he's raking brush on the other side and just, he's putting on a show. So I had forgotten my camera, but my dad got some video of it. So I've got some video of my dad's video basically. So we watched him for a few minutes and I got back to work. But it's funny because the next tree I cut is like this tree that's probably almost 8 inches.
Yeah.
And it's like 20 feet tall. And I cut this thing and I pushed it straight towards him. So this big, huge tree crash goes down and
he's like, that sucker must be bigger than I thought.
You could see the wheels turning in his head where he was looking at that thing going, how big a moose would it take to knock down that tree? You could just see the wheels turning in his head because he just got real quiet, stared at us for a bit, and then slowly turned and walked away.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty funny. And then
that's awesome.
the next day we decided to get the meat back to camp because or back to town.
Okay.
Yeah, because it'd been pretty wet out, and my dad was kind of getting worried about it because we had it hanging up with a tarp over it, but it's just so damp.
Yeah.
Without a fan on it and stuff. So we loaded it up in canoe. Like you talked about, it was. There wasn't
a lot of water
about that
between
much,
the top
I think.
and the bottom, right?
Yeah, it was pretty heavy, and it was a slow trip back.
Yeah.
And got it dropped off. Spent that night in town.
Yeah.
And then the next morning jumped back in the boat and headed back up to camp, and we got there about, I don't know, probably 4:00 in the afternoon, and like the last hour was raining pretty good.
Yeah.
And those boat rides when it's 40-ish and raining,
pretty
man, it gets
bone
cold.
chilling, I bet.
Yeah. So we were both pretty cold. So we jumped in the tent there and made some tea and had some food, and I think about 6:00, it kind of stopped raining. So we're like, let's go check the gut pile. And So which is, it only takes like half hour to get to the gut pile from where we were at a camp there. So, way the wind was blowing, we kind of looped around on the river a bit, parked the canoe, and then, came in from the side there. And as we're kind of working our way down this ridge, one of the things I hadn't mentioned is, you basically make a tripod out of poles, small poles, so it's like maybe 5 feet tall, and you put a bunch of surveyor's tape on it. You stand that up on top of the gut pile.
Okay.
You make it big enough that the ravens can't knock it over.
Yeah.
But if anything wants to drag it off, it's going to knock this down.
Yeah,
kind
which
of
is
an
really
indicator,
interesting.
right?
When Brian had mentioned that, I was like, oh, I mean, you get that light bulb moment. It's like, why haven't I thought of that? I mean, what a great idea.
Well, we just don't hunt gut piles.
True, that's true. But
very
it's
often
like,
where that's a thing up there. But
I've been on a couple bear hunts and we didn't do that. And it was like, oh yeah, for sure. That would have been, because we had to go up there and walk around it, and see if there hadn't been any tracks or anything. But where you could just see that, falling over from a long ways away.
Yeah, I've done it in the
had
past.
To disturb it.
Where you literally glass it from like a mile away. To see if it's been disturbed or not.
Great
You're
idea.
Not getting scent in there and everything, right?
Yeah, I thought it was just one of those light bulb moments for me.
Yeah, that's smart.
So we're working our way down the ridge there, and you're kind of getting to the point where it's like, pretty sure I should be able to see that by now.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not seeing it. And then about the same time, I'm noticing all the ravens, and they're sitting up in trees, they're flying around, and they're making a little, like the birds aren't happy.
They're not on the pile.
So, they're not on the pile.
You can, I just had this experience the other day, bison hunting, walked up on a carcass, a carcass that was in there, and basically from a long ways away, before you can even see anything there, you can read the birds, how agitated they are, and what's there and what's not. Right? And I had a grizzly on a carcass, and and basically knew to steer clear of it. Otherwise, I mean, I walked right up on it on the trail there. So learning to read the birds is it's pretty valuable for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, very quick side story. I was elk hunting last year, and up in the Beartooth. Yeah. And I just happened to notice that there was like 5 or 6 gray jays all in the same area. And it's common to see, they seem to be in threes a lot. Yeah. But there's like 5 or 6, and they're not just traveling through, they're all around there. Yeah. It was kind of the same thing. They weren't agitated or anything, but I went like another 50 yards and just got that little whiff of rotten meat. Yeah. Well, I think I'll just back out of here.
Yeah, we'll steer clear of that one.
Steer clear.
Yeah. But so anyway, we worked our way up to the little clearing I'd cut, so I had a shooting lane. Yeah. So it's definitely, the tripod's definitely gone. And actually, once we started looking, we could see it, laying on its side out there. And I set up, it's kind of like a forward slope, so I just set up with the tripod sitting. It's only about 200 yards out there, and just set there, and you kind of got this slough in front of you, but it's not. I mean, I don't think it's ever more than 3 or 4 feet deep. It's just everything. Water collects everywhere, and then it's grass on the other side. There's a bank where we're at. But then on the other side, it's just flat, and it's just like willows that transition into spruce. So our thought was, where the gut pile was, is he's going to drag it off into that brush. So it's we're just gonna have to be very diligent, because we have a chance of catching a glimpse of him if he comes to the edge, kind of. And so it makes sense after the fact, but we've been sitting there for about an hour, and kind of off to our left, so on our side of the slough, we heard some splashing, and I'd seen a beaver. So I thought it was going to be a beaver. And then my dad was just thinking, that's probably that other moose still. But we're looking over there trying to see, and just trying to like burn through the brush with the binoculars and stuff. And then Dad saw before I did. My dad's like, hey, that's a bear. Oh, okay, cool. And I see him, he just comes walking across the slough. And it makes sense after the fact, just he was directly downwind of the gut pile. Yeah. So he bedded where he was directly downwind, so he could smell if something else got on there. And he comes walking out there, so he's wading through like 2 or 3 feet of water. Plus the grass, I can only see the top of his back for a lot of the time. So I never really had a perception of how big a bear is he. Sure. But I had pretty much already made up my mind that any bear is going to do.
This many days in,
And so he kind of gets to about where the gut pile had been. We expect he's going to drag it off in the brush, and he starts messing around, and I probably had to watch him for like 2 or 3 minutes, just waiting for that right opening. Where either I wasn't shooting through a bunch of grass, because I'm really nervous about grass deflecting bullets, even if it's just that last 10 feet. And then finally I got this kind of window, and he's picking up scraps, because I saw him pick up a scrap and kind of take a bite out of something, and kind of put his head back and throw it down. And eventually got to this point where he's broadside. I've got his shoulders, but I'm still shooting at like the top third of him, so I'm just like right at that grass line. So I took a shot, and he just drops. Just disappeared from sight. Didn't really see the impact. It's only 200 yards, but he just disappears from sight. Chamber another round real quick, and I can hear him thrashing around in there. But he's definitely down.
Can't see him.
Yeah, can't see him. Yeah. And then, and I kind of about 15 seconds later, I saw him right about the same time my dad said he's up. And I think he just pushed himself up on his front legs because I'd spined him with that first shot.
Yeah.
But he's kind of facing towards me, and basically his head's almost right towards me. But offset, so he's looking a little bit to my right. So I just put the crosshairs just to the left side of his ear and gave him another one. And that one I saw where he just basically just stiffened up, tipped over. Yeah, nice. So I was like, okay, he's definitely down.
Yeah.
And so it was
That's
definitely
cool.
definitely one of the highlights.
Yeah.
My hunting life is not only getting that done.
Right.
After a couple trips, but getting to share the experience with my dad.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. Huh. And tell us a little bit more about the gun and the decisions, like what went into why 30 Nosler, why Magnus, what barrel length you went with, and kind of all the details there.
When I first started thinking about it, my dad is a sheep hunter at heart. Mm-hmm. So that's what he still does is he sheep hunts, to the best that he can at 76 years old. And he does a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it.
The other thing he likes to do is, he still traps, and he's shot a pile of wolves in the winter.
Yeah.
So it has to be a wolf gun.
Yeah.
Although that could maybe be a different gun.
Sure.
And so, but then you're always sheep hunting in grizzly country. But at the same token, when you're moose hunting, that tends to be a fairly close range thing, and you're doing it where there's grizzly bears. And I kind of wanted the one gun that'd be comfortable doing everything with.
Yeah.
So I would certainly tell most people, hey, if you're building a sheep rifle, build a 7mm of some sort.
Yeah.
But in his case, where it's gonna be his moose gun too.
Yeah.
And it has to work in the brush. So, and he had tried. It's probably like 25, 30 years ago now, but he'd had a custom 300 Win Mag built. Weighed about 11 pounds. Like one of the 5R barrels. But he never could get it to shoot, or at least to his specs. He had some custom 30-06s that'll shoot a half minute all day. So that was kind of his standard, and he could never get that Win Mag to shoot as good. So I was very tempted to build him a Win Mag. But I'm like, you know what? I'm very familiar with the 30 Nosler because I have one.
Yeah.
And I pretty much built mine with the mentality of like, hey, this is my Alaska gun that I can also use on elk.
Yeah.
Fairly short barrel because, hey, if I give up 100 feet per second on a 30 Nosler, it's still every bit of a Win Mag.
Right.
And so I built him a 30 Nosler, Magnus stock as light as I can make it, which just basically means you take out the adjustable hardware in the back. 22-inch barrel.
Yeah.
That way, if ultimately if you end up running a suppressor, it's
still manageable.
Still manageable.
Yeah.
Although, boy, I'll tell you, I didn't run the suppressor up there. I regretted it when I shot because my ears were ringing.
Yeah.
But man, carrying around in that brush that extra 6 inches on a suppressor
save that
really would have gotten in the way.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I kind of forgotten about that I remember from when I was a kid though is how much you end up using a rifle as a walking stick up there. Because a traditional walking stick in that muskeg, the point will just sink out of sight.
Sure.
But the butt of a rifle just gives you that third point of support oftentimes. And when we were packing his moose out, my thought was, I'll take the first load out and then we'll run down to camp. I'll just get the pistol so I don't have to carry the rifle. But the holes in between muskeg is that deep. And I was having such a hard time keeping my balance and was using the rifle so much as that third leg. I was like, no, I think I'm just going to keep the rifle.
Yeah.
Because I kind of need it.
New product idea. We need a handle on the end of the barrel, like a trekking pole.
Yeah.
So we need a suppressor shaped like a
suppressor with a grip on it.
I'm not sure if we'd recommend using your $10,000 rifle for that, but hey,
it gets used for that.
Use it for.
And then so I put the Leopold Mark V 3-18 on it. I think it's about the perfect power range.
Yeah.
But
titanium or steel on the actions?
Titanium.
Yeah. Keep it light.
Yeah, make it as light as possible.
There. Yeah.
So it's my dad's always carried heavy guns. He carries 10 to 12 pound rifles around. So if I had something that ended up being 10 pounds with everything on it, that's fine for him.
Well, that's probably closer to a 9-pound rifle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably in the
318. It is for sure.
Yeah,
it's titanium.
Without a suppressor and without a bipod on it, it should be in that 9-pound range. I think.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. For a big round like that, it seems
very shootable.
Pretty awesome.
On that platform.
I don't think I'd want to go any lighter than that.
Sure,
on
right.
30
and 30 Nosler.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but
Very cool.
so it's I know he's got and some of the other thoughts that went into the build, and just, like I loaded up just so he'd have some ammo. I did a little load development with the gun and loaded up some 200 grain Hornady LDXs.
Yeah.
Using 78-28 for powder, just because I know he's got a bunch of it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And, we have a hard time finding Rotumbo and the good powders. Well, I mean,
up there, it's probably impossible.
The twice he can't get it on the internet up there. They won't ship. And then the twice a year that he goes to town for it just to happen to be in stock on the day that he's there. I mean, those are just astronomical odds. So, he's got to kind of use what he's got. And I know he's got a lot of 200 grain bullets. I know he's got a lot of 78-28. And that works pretty good with the lighter bullets and the 30 Nosler.
Nice.
Good
stuff.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of us are jealous. I mean, it'd be nice to have some family members in Alaska, don't you think?
I keep thinking, how can I convince my brother to move to Alaska? Then how would I even get him in the backcountry? That's another story. But
the more I think about it in my family, I think I'm going to have to be the one.
I'm going to have to be the one. That's the only way it's going to work.
I'm going to be the one that has to move up there, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the conclusion I've come to.
Yeah.
It's a really cool experience, but on the same token, like, I really like the country around here. I just love the country around here. I mean, it is like getting around up there is literally 5 times as hard as it is to get around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we get into thinner, patches of timber where there's a lot of log fall and stuff like that here, but usually there's an opening somewhere, there's a way around. Man, up there is just, especially unless you get up in the sheep country where you can run ridges. Yeah. But even the hillsides are that muskeg with holes this deep. Crazy. And it's broad and it's soft and it's spongy. And I mean, you're wearing hip boots constantly. I mean, you unless you're sheep hunting, you'll never wear mountain boots up there.
Yeah.
You're living in hip boots, because there's just water everywhere.
Right.
You got that permafrost in northern Alaska. It never thaws 3 feet under the ground, so you get that permafrost.
Yep.
So any water that falls just sits on top of the ground.
Yeah.
So it's just everything is a swamp.
Yeah. Yeah, what I remember the most is the alders that point the opposite direction you're trying to go.
Always.
So you're trying to go uphill, and they always point downhill.
Yep.
And then what's the big, the one with all the stickers?
Oh, that's Southern Alaska, the Devil's Club. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Southern Alaska Devil's Club is brutal.
First time I went and didn't take leather gloves. My hands were, they'd like get so many pokes by the end of the day, they'd kind of be swollen.
Really?
I don't know if I was just a little allergic or whatever, But at the end of the day, your hands just ached.
Yikes.
That's one nice thing in northern Alaska. We don't have that.
Yeah. Oh man, that those are two things that just bring. But it's that painful thing while you're there, right?
Yeah.
But you come home.
It's part of the allure.
Within a
Wish
week,
I could go experience.
Within a week, you're trying to
Devil's Club
figure out how to go back, right?
Completely.
And so, I think I've gone, 6 times to Alaska. So,
okay, awesome.
I've been I was a cameraman early on in my career, so a couple trips being a cameraman, and then I've done some hunts up there. I did an Alaskan moose hunt, and obviously some Dall sheep hunts up there.
Yeah.
And but I just. It never seems like I can go back enough.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out a way to get up there for a long time. I'm actually finally making it to Kodiak this fall.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be exciting. But even then, I'd like to get I want to get the sheep and the moose experience. That's
I've never been
really
to Kodiak.
about.
So that's on my bucket list. Is to
never.
I'll probably never get a Kodiak.
Yeah.
I just want to go hunt blacktails.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just such a beautiful deer, and that
you
country's
can take
so
more
cool.
than one, right? If I remember
think
right,
you can take 3.
You can take several. Maybe you don't want to, but it's like
you can.
you have the option there to take a couple. So
that means you can either knock one over with a rifle fairly early, so you go home with something,
exactly,
and then spend some time bow
still
hunting,
trophy hunt,
or you can just get serious about trophy hunting after that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, which would be nice.
I think the thing that stood out to me is how would it be to go moose hunting? First of all, it's just an over-the-counter tag, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'd rather just shoot the little guy because he's gonna taste better.
He's gonna taste better, right?
Yeah, there's a giant trophy moose there. I'll shoot the little
if I'd have seen a real trophy, because the thing about Alaska with the non-resident tags is you can use it on a lesser animal.
Yeah.
So if you're walking around with a grizzly tag in your pocket, it's literally a safari.
Yeah.
You can shoot anything.
Yeah.
You can use it on anything you see. Yeah. And when that other moose came out, my dad was completely unexcited about him. He's probably like 55 inches. Okay. He had the 4 brow tines, but he just his paw, like the top of his antlers were pretty smooth. There just wasn't much for points. But it looked like a big moose to me. I was like, that's a pretty big moose.
It'd be hard for me to
I was tempted.
Shoot a moose like that. Yeah.
I was tempted. And really it was more of it was so hard to get that other one out of here.
2 moose would be
2 moose, and then who do we give the meat to? It was a little more of that,
right?
And then it was just like hey, the the setup is perfect. This is the setup I've been wanting. We got to meet moose early. We have a gut pile. It's like I just need to be patient.
Yeah.
So obviously, so glad I held out.
Yeah.
But
that's pretty cool. Well, I think
I was just going to say, it's like, I mean, we've been telling stories, but I'm pretty sure you've got a story to tell.
Oh.
Unless you've told it already.
I've told it a couple times, but yeah.
On the podcast
Not
or
on the
just around?
podcast,
I was going to say, I haven't heard yet, so.
Yeah, I got real lucky and drew a bison tag here in Wyoming this year.
Are they once in a lifetime now, or have they passed that yet?
It's a little bit unique in Wyoming. My understanding is the bull bison is a once in a lifetime, but it's not the tag; it's the animal. And so it's like a once in a lifetime sheep tag. Whether you notch that tag or eat that tag soup, you're done.
Yeah.
With a bison in Wyoming, they have a cow tag that's, there's no points for one, right? So it's a completely random draw on bison, at least for residents. So you can get the cow tag, right? I think it's actually harder to draw the cow tag if I remember right. The bull tag, you can shoot. It's actually any bison.
Any bison, yeah.
So if you shoot a bull, you're done, right? You can't shoot another bull. You can't get the tag again. But if you shoot a cow on that tag, you can get the tag again, apparently.
And shoot a bull the second time.
Shoot a bull the second time.
Okay.
But I shot a bull, so I am officially
You're out of the pool?
Out of
Good.
the pool.
Maybe I'll draw next year.
Yeah. The funny thing is
we might have a chance.
It's a tough tag to draw, but
because it's all random.
It's all random. And there's only, I think, maybe 100 tags for the any bison, but it's a very difficult hunt. It's not a shoe-in like a lot of these once-in-a-lifetime hunts, right? I mean, you think about a sheep hunt in Wyoming. If you can get into the mountains and spend some time, you're going to kill a sheep, right? Like you may not kill a 180-inch ram, but you're going to kill a ram.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with a mountain goat. Maybe a little tougher, it's depending on the unit, but you're going to kill an animal. A moose, it's like piece of cake.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Right.
And so, but these bison, I think the success rate for the last few years, if you look at the history, I think success rate for the last couple of years has been maybe 50%, and guys are spending 15 to 20 days hunting.
Yeah.
Whether they tag out or not.
Well,
right?
what surprised me
was
when I don't know if you posted it or if we saw it, like it was an in-company email or something, but how early it is.
Yeah.
Like nobody kills them. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but hardly anybody kills them this early because they're always in the park this early.
So
you wait until the big, January, December, or December, January.
Right.
Lots of snow pushes them out, and you're trying to catch them on those outskirts. And I was like, how the heck did he kill one this early?
I mean, it's this whole thing, and obviously you draw a tag like that, and you spend the whole year kind of researching and talking to people who've had the tag. I had a good buddy that had the tag last year, and I think he spent 20-some days hunting and ended up killing a cow the second to last day of the season, right?
Yeah.
So a very difficult hunt. And so as excited as I was pretty nervous about the hunt in the first place. And I really wanted to not get my hopes up, because the last thing I wanted to do is, be so excited about this once in a lifetime tag and then
go 30 days and nothing.
And so I was really kind of trying to temper my excitement. But at the same time, it's like really cool opportunity, you know? And so did a bunch of research this year. The season opens August 15th, I think, and runs through January. So it's a really, really long season. And basically what you're doing is you're hunting the resident herds. Essentially Yellowstone was like the last stronghold for bison in the entire North America, right? I mean, they would have been extinct if they hadn't basically built the park to protect the bison. A couple really cool books out there if you guys really want to dive into the weeds. Stephen Rinella wrote a really great book on it, and there's another one, I think it's called Last Stand, George Bird Grinnell and the effort to save the American bison. One of the best nonfiction books I've read in a long time.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, basically you can't hunt in the park, right? You can't hunt in Yellowstone, can't hunt in Teton Park, and you can drive through there and see 1,000 bison sitting 5 feet on the side of the road. You're waiting in the road for a bison to walk across. Well, with this tag, you're basically tiptoeing around the borders of the park and waiting for one of these bison to get lost and accidentally step out of the park, because they seemed, it's almost like they've got GPS in their hooves. I mean, they just know where they're at. And so, they step out every once in a while, but it's pretty seldom. and traditionally they've got the National Elk Refuge that kind of borders the Teton Park right there in Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where most of the bison historically have been killed, and they usually don't make it out onto there until late in the season.
Yeah.
So the traditional strategy is just wait till a really big late season snowstorm when it pushes all those bison out of the park out into those grasslands in the elk refuge, and then they go whack them. Well, for whatever reason, the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, they almost never even make it out onto the refuge, whether it's been good, just milder winters, or they're learning that they're getting slaughtered out on the elk refuge, so they're learning to stay in the park, but it's gotten very, very difficult. And so there's just a couple little spots that, people have found some, the bordering the park in some national forests where every once in a while you run into a bison. And so, I just decided to go for a hike one day, early October. I guess it was September.
September,
It was end of September. And, even though the odds are low, I guess I figured, 1 in a million is better than zero sitting at home.
Yeah.
And elk hunting's open, so I figured I'd carry my bow and call for some elk and have a rifle just in case I run into a bull there. And just got really lucky walking out through the sagebrush, walked up and, I'm glassing all this, big wide open sagebrush. You got the Tetons in the background.
Yeah.
And set down my binoculars, put them in my bino harness, and all of a sudden there's a bison laying in the sagebrush 25 yards away from me.
You walked right up on it.
I walked right up on it.
Oh, amazing.
And it's funny because they're such big animals, but they're kind of sail shaped. They're like taller than you are when they stand.
Yeah.
But they're really not that wide, probably not much wider than like a bull elk, right? And so I think the way they're shaped, that thing was like we got cameras going here, the guys listening. To lay down, I don't think they lay down like a deer on its belly,
like vertical.
I think they just have to go flop over on the side, kind of like a horse would, like lay over. And so I think that sagebrush is 3 or 4 or 5 feet high. It's amazing that a 2,000-pound animal can hide in the sagebrush, but he straight up was hiding in the sagebrush.
Wow!
And stood up and. I've got that mile-capable 28 Nosler in hand and ended up shooting broadside of a bison at 25 yards.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, that was quite an adventure. And then getting the thing cut up and hauled out was a whole, other adventure. I was solo, right? It's like I don't think I had anything more than a Havalon knife. Like I was irresponsibly unprepared.
Yeah, just
the thought
just figuring in the back of your head was,
it's not going to happen, but I got to go through the motions to make it happen, right? And so, I was essentially planning on it not happening. And that's probably why it did, right?
Yeah.
And, I guess, what's the old adage? Either way, it's better to be lucky than good than lucky, I guess. Lucky than good. But it worked out pretty well and was very fortunate. Had some guys headed that way to do some hunting already with horses, and so I literally called them.
Oh,
up and
nice!
Headed that direction and came out and helped me haul the thing out.
Good.
Very, very grateful for some help from some good people.
How far did you end up packing it? Because you had horses right to it.
So when I shot him, I was like, oh man, I think I was 4 or 6 miles into my hike, but it turned out I was already kind of starting to round my loop and head back to the truck because I hadn't seen anything yet that morning, and. So it ended up only being about 2 miles from the truck in relatively gentle terrain. So, 2 miles with a 2,000-pound animal, it might as well be 2,000 miles on foot. Yeah. But, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
So,
good. Yeah, because I've never seen a bison down. And I know they're a lot bigger than a moose.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know how big a moose looks like when it's down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, just to quarter it by yourself. Because quartering a moose without 2 people is so difficult.
Possible.
Yeah.
3 people. We ended up bringing the horse and basically tying off on the saddle.
Okay.
To
roll
be able
the leg.
just to lift the leg to quarter it.
Oh my gosh.
I think 3 people just to quarter one of those things would be very a major challenge. It took us all day. To skin and quarter and load that thing in it.
Ooh, gonna do a big rug on that hide? Did you keep the hide?
I kept the hide. Good. So we'll see. The skull to me is half the trophy.
Yeah.
So we'll have some hide, some skull, and there'll be some fun stuff.
What do you think? A younger bull, older bull? I didn't get to see it. So.
I
Pretty
think,
gnarly horns?
Yeah, I'll probably have the horns back here pretty quick at the skull. When I shot him, I was like, man, I didn't get it. It happened so fast. I kind of expected to see him and look at him. Yeah. It's like, it happened so fast. I didn't know if I shot a cow.
Oh, yeah.
You very rarely see cows away from the herd, so I was fairly certain it was a bull. But I'm thinking, maybe I just shot a yearling or something. Well, I walked up, his horns were all broomed off and
gnarly, that's a good sign.
Big kind of beat up bases.
Yeah.
He had a giant gore wound right behind his ear, like huge wound right behind here, and then back on his hindquarter as well. So
fairly recent? Do you think that's what pushed him off?
I think he was off out recovering, and I think he was laying down. When I first saw him, he was kind of rolling a little bit in. They make these big dust bowl beds.
Yeah.
And almost like a pheasant will get and kind of dust itself, but
much
times
bigger.
Man-sized.
Right? Yeah. And so I thought he was laying there dusting because he was kind of rolling around. I think in retrospect, what he was doing, he was trying to get up.
Oh, and he was just having a hard time with it.
Like an 800-pound man getting off a couch,
Yeah.
And so he was kind of rolling around trying to get up, and he stood up and whacked him. But I think he was in pretty rough shape. I think he was an old bull. I think
well, that's cool.
You have to send in teeth, so we'll have some age reports back here pretty soon. Hopefully.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's what we all hope for, is to really get that really mature animal,
exactly,
like in the last year of their life that
might
not survive the winter.
Frankly, I have no idea how you score a bison. Is probably similar to like a mountain goat or something like that, but I don't think the score really on a bison is what matters. It's like you want an old gnarly bull,
especially a free range, right? It's like the trophy is actually getting, like you said, less than 50%. Actually get one. So
after you draw the tag,
you pull the trigger. That's your. You've got that trophy. It's like you're all the way there with the trophy, I think. And then if you just happen to kill a big old bull, that's the frosting on the cake, right?
Absolutely.
That's the best part, the little bit of extra on the end.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's kind of always been my philosophy when hunting.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, the odds
Age
may not
class
be good
over score.
Well, but getting back to your kind of thought process going into it, it's like the odds may not be good, but they're a hell of a lot better than sitting at home.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Straight up. It's like, every minute of every day, I just focus on trying to be doing something that could kill an animal, even if it's eating lunch. Sit where I can see.
Yeah.
It's just like it can happen at any time.
Yeah.
And you just increase your odds of being lucky the more time you spend out there and just.
And I think I've learned that lesson several times in the last 2 or 3, 4 years. Like I just think back, and there's a lot of those times. Like a deer last year was the same thing. It was raining and nasty, and it's that you're burned out. You've been out for days on end, and it's like, this is not the day to go out
today.
Yeah.
Right. It's like I'm wasting my time, and then 300 yards from the truck, probably the easiest pack out ever. Like here's this deer.
Here's a nice deer. Yeah.
So exactly right. I think was kind of playing with some ideas or writing up a story for the hunt. I think I might title it "So You're Saying There's a Chance."
Exactly.
Great
there's
title,
a chance.
by the way.
Right.
Great
that
title.
is for sure.
Yeah. Even though it's one
the
in
old
a
Dumb
million.
and Dumber, the old Dumb and Dumber quote.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you drew the tag in the first place,
exactly.
so there is a chance.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same thing, right? It's like I've drawn 3 once in a lifetime tags in the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And with really not off of points, but off a chance. And it's just you got to be putting in.
You got to be doing
the tags.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, a couple fun hunt stories. I think we usually try to focus on some training stories here, but I think maybe this is like the result of the training.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
The harder you train, the closer the animals end up. I think is probably the moral of the story there. But
and Jeremy's got some Alaska experience too, because I know the question's going to come up. How does equipment you use in Alaska kind of differ from what we'd use for most Western hunting? So I kind of thought about it a little bit, and obviously hip boots.
Yeah.
Like anything that involves moose, bears, northern Alaska, hip boots are essential. So it's lacrosse insulated hip boots, size so you can wear like at least 2 pair of thick socks, if not 3.
Yeah.
And they'll keep your feet warm, but you live in those things, and they're always going to be damp because it's rubber. So once you sweat in there, it's damp. So that was an essential piece of gear. As far as packs go, I've got a couple different traditional Western packs, and I'm sure you could probably figure out how to run the straps around a moose quarter and somehow get that thing on your back. But if you look up in Alaska, everybody uses the Frontier Gear of Alaska, freighter external pack frames, big external frames,
Yep.
And it's Barney Sports Chalet in Anchorage that
That's
sells
the one
them.
you hear a lot about.
Yeah,
man.
and my dad's got a couple, so I don't bring a pack when I go up there because
Sure.
I know my dad has an extra one, so I always just use his extra one. But
Yeah.
I honestly, if I look at the traditional Western packs I have,
Yeah.
and I go, man, I can't really imagine. I'm sure it can do it.
Yeah.
And people have done it, but I was like, man, I can't imagine strapping a moose core to that thing. It's just so big.
I learned that story trying to strap a bison head to a little Kuyu, what, 4,000
4,000?
LT, I think. Like I've got video, guys go jump on my Instagram and you can see it. And like I ended up using ratchet straps to strap that thing.
Yeah.
And because it's like I've carried some very heavy loads in that thing, but that bison head was 120 pounds.
Oh,
Yeah.
And it's half of this table, right? It's like you got to bear hug the thing to lift it up. And
it's probably
a
not
pack
even-
frame would have been really nice. I mean, that pack, I will say that pack performed incredibly well. Like if I didn't break,
You pushed the
if I
extreme
didn't
limits.
break stays on that carbon frame, then nothing will.
Yeah.
But just for convenience,
Yeah.
something that big and awkwardly shaped, I think.
Yeah, I
that
was
pack
just going
frame
to
would
point
be
out
awesome.
the awkwardly shaped because
It's
like a
the
moose
shape,
quarter,
exactly.
it's kind of long and skinny.
Yeah.
So it fits the pack pretty well. You just got to strap it in well enough that it can't shift. But
Right.
I mean that reminds me of like you watch those old strongman contests where they're picking up these big
Exactly.
big rocks and setting them
Exactly.
up. I mean that thing is
Right.
just like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like those barrels that they lift up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, that's not going inside my 4,000 liter or cubic inch pack.
And then the other piece of gear that worked out really well for me, and keep in mind that we got all this modern rain gear, and you will never catch a fisherman or someone that doesn't work in the backcountry, wearing the breathable type
Gore-Tex
rain gear
type
because it's
stuff,
not capable of staying waterproof.
Yeah.
For 10
indefinitely.
days, for a long period of time.
Eventually, it's going to get saturated.
They're wearing the rubberized type stuff.
Yeah, they're wearing the rubberized stuff. But and I think it's discontinued. So there's a wide open spot in the market here for someone to jump on this.
Yeah.
Is Sitka made what they call the Kodiak jacket, which is a duster style, like 3/4 length jacket. Because you think about it, if you wear rain pants inside hip boots, it's self-defeating because all the water runs down into your hip boots.
Yeah.
So you need something that covers the top of the hip boots because I never wore rain pants the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
But I just wore that jacket that would cover that gap down past the hip boots.
Yeah.
And that jacket did very well. I mean, I got a little bit saturated going through wet brush more so than just sitting in the rain.
Yeah.
But then just having a camp where at night I could get that thing dried out, so it was ready to go again the next day.
Yeah.
And I was never really wet and uncomfortable.
Nice.
And then, kind of one of my mainstays on clothing has always been the KU Guide series. I wore the guide pants the whole time. Had it been a little bit warmer, I might have gone for something lighter, but it was just, that was perfect. And then, like every layer of clothing has to be water resistant. So if I stack that rain jacket over the KU Guide jacket, which is almost a rain jacket in its own right, and then underneath that, you got your water resistant puffy, whatever it is. And then underneath that, instead of merino wool, I'm wearing like a synthetic. So if that gets wet, it's going to dry quicker.
Yeah.
Although merino wool is warmer, and I could tell the difference because I usually wear merino wool base layers, and I had some of both. And on the days that I wore the synthetic when it was really wet out, I could tell the difference that it wasn't quite as warm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that was
Well, that's what I mean. I even learned that, early, doing those sheep hunts. Especially the first one I did. You read all the stories and cut your toothbrush in half, and go super ultralight. So I bought the lightest, super light, packable, rain gear. But I found out really quick that it tears really easy.
Yeah.
So you got to get up through the alders and the trees to get to the. You don't very seldom stay above tree line all the time. So you're going back and forth. So it tore quite a bit of. So I was always duct taping it, and then literally 3 days of rain, and it was worth. I mean, it would just soak clear through. Yeah. So I gave up the packability and actually carried a much heavier rain gear than I even do here.
Yeah.
Just for the simple fact that it needs to be robust, because you're going to be wearing, like, even if it doesn't rain, everything is wet in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to be walking through, all kinds of stuff. So you have to wear your rain gear even to get above tree line, and then start hunting from there. And then when it does rain, it's usually for, one time Aaron and I sat in a little pup tent for over 10 days, you
Yeah.
know, and that was our sheep hunt essentially. You know, it rained and rained and rained and rained. And, you know, in that situation, you know, almost anything but a rubber, you know, a rubber suit, you know, the good, you know, rubber stuff would have soaked through eventually, right? Because even our tent did eventually.
Yeah,
So,
I've been shopping some rain gear for this Kodiak hunt. You know, it's a generally very wet environment, and I mean, you know, hunting the West, we definitely get some wet hunts. You know, this last weekend was a good example where it's very, very wet for several days on end. But that's, you know, usually even here it's a couple of days and then you're done.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's more incidental stuff. And so, you know, a nice 2.5 layer pack light type Gore-Tex, you know, or similar is usually going to work very well for Western hunting, and it's very light. But you know, you look at like Kuiu, their Chugach rain gear is probably their most popular, and it's very, very heavy duty. It's built for that, you know, 10 days on end kind of.
I tell you what,
and durable.
See, I kind of go like one step further.
Yeah.
And just like if I was going sheep hunting up there now, or like where you going on Kodiak, because I would just bring the Kuiu Yukon pants and plan on wearing them day in, day out.
Yeah.
You know, because rather than layering a shell over your existing hunting pants, the Yukon pants are, you know,
I think the Yukon line is
of
the one that I meant, actually, not the Chugach.
Yeah, the Chugach is a little more packable,
Yukon
I
is the
think.
heavy duty stuff.
Yeah. The Yukon stuff, I mean, like I said, I've used the Yukon in Alaska. I really like it.
Yeah.
You know, and the only reason I brought that Sitka jacket instead of the Yukon is just because it's that duster style.
The duster style which would be nice.
Yeah, the one I've been really looking at lately is the new Katana. It's kind of that blend of so you know, Bennett has some it's heavier. Yeah. It's heavier than some of them. But it's pretty robust. Like it's probably not as quiet as most guys like. Yeah. But I think this next year I'm gonna pick me up a set because I'm pretty impressed with it. I'm thinking, you know,
if Bennett's got some, I'd like to take a look at it.
It's heavy enough to, I think, to maybe cover that Alaska stuff, but still light enough that you can roll it up and throw it in your pack. And it probably wouldn't be like as heavy as like the you know, that Yukon stuff.
Okay.
You know, maybe kind of like a blend between what you would think, you know, packable and super heavy would be. It's got, you know, some really nice features. It's got some built-in cuff gaiters on the bottom, you know, where your feet are always, you know, together.
Rubbing.
That's the spot that wears out in the heel area there. You know, it's got some nice zipper pockets and, you know, some ventilation in the right spots, I think.
Nice.
Anyway, you might check that out. I've been eyeing it this whole last year, and Bennett has a set, and I'm pretty committed. I think I'm going to try that.
Yeah, I'll just check out a set.
I've got the lightweight. I've got not the Yukon, but it's under the Chugach.
I can't remember
what it is.
They've added to their line. Whatever
anyway,
that was.
It's not the ultralight, but it's like one step up, and you know, and it's worked really well for my Western hunting.
Yeah.
But you know, I think going to Alaska, I need that. Yeah. I think it might rip. It might be light enough to rip.
Yep.
And so that's why I'm trending towards that Katana line.
Yeah.
It's definitely a more robust, thicker material.
Yeah, I didn't mean to devolve into a Kuiu discussion. I mean, it sounds like we've all been thinking along the same line. So they've got the new Chugach TR, which I think is an upgraded version.
Yeah.
And I've been looking at it. I think, like you said, it's probably a little bit on the light side for like the heavy bushwhacking kind of stuff, but it's very good on the breathability and waterproofness scale. But I think the Katana is going to have better wearability, and so there's a little bit of trade-offs there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, to get Bennett to bring his, you know,
I'll have
there's nothing better than putting it on and feeling it. You know what I mean? It's like you can tell right away whether it's going to work or not.
You'll have to chat with him about that.
Yeah. Yeah, gear in Alaska, man. You know, it's so different than what I'm used to here, right? Like I never leave camp without a camp stove.
Yeah.
You know, there's always water somewhere.
Yeah.
So I got a little, you know, burner stove. Yeah. You know, guys got my little, you know, packets of coffee or Tang or whatever your flavor is, you know, there. So there's nothing better than sitting up in the rain for 2 hours and having a nice hot cup of something.
Well, I turned into a 10-year-old kid up there where it's like all I can think about is making a cup of hot chocolate.
You know, just those little things, you know, that you know, make and break the hunt.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, we just always had a jet boil with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those, I mean, I use them here. They work great up there. I mean, I was using Dad's because I can't fly with the canisters.
Yeah.
But those little jet boils just work so good.
Yeah. 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 Just a whole different environment for sure.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing your story,
Yeah,
Brian.
no,
I think
same
that's,
with you.
that's pretty cool. Congrats.
Yeah. Not to rub it in, but my season's only half over.
That's true. You've got some really good stuff coming up.
Like, he's got a mule deer
got
tag
some
that I'm
potential.
pretty jealous of, to be honest. I've always wanted to hunt that.
And the elk tag, not to mention. Right?
Yeah, I mean that mule deer tag is the one I'm going to put most of my energy into. Though. I think I mean, it might be once in a lifetime, even though it's not called that, because I think my odds of drawing it again are pretty slim.
Yeah. How many overall tags is there?
25.
Wow.
Yeah. 20 of which go to residents.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a pretty low number for that area. That's a pretty big area.
Yeah. So
what are the hunt dates? It's November.
It's November 1st to the 21st.
20 something.
Which a lot of those only go to the 10th or the 15th. Well, so you've got some really prime rut.
It's actually a general area, but the general closes on the 7th.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so basically just got another 2 weeks of rut and another 2 weeks for snow to start pushing around.
Pray for some really nasty weather because I mean, you know, that's the kind of hunt where it's like kind of like some of these Colorado third season hunts where actually the third season can be better than the fourth season if you get early weather. And then it warms up into November, December. So I mean, it's going to be very weather dependent, but it could be really good.
Yeah, he's got two things going for him, right? He's got the rut time frame,
and
then and he throws some weather on top of that. I mean,
in Wyoming in November, you're going to have weather,
right?
And combine that with not only did I draw the tag, but we had like the wettest spring and summer we've had in years.
So the horn growth is incredible.
I was talking to Jeremy about it. The hardest thing for me
could have ever picked
is honestly going to be not shooting the first 160 something I see.
Yeah,
I mean, I need to take my trigger finger to my other finger so I can't shoot or something.
You probably shouldn't be shooting the first 180 or 190.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I didn't want to set that number too high.
Yeah, right.
It's got that potential.
It's got the potential.
I mean, if you check all the boxes, right? Like if you get the weather and we know the rut's going to be coming on that second week,
horn
right?
growth is incredible.
Yeah,
this year.
big horn growth. Like you check to kill a big mule deer in Wyoming, like that tag has some. I mean, probably some of the best potential out there, right?
Yeah.
You know, besides maybe the early, rifle stuff in, the high country. But
I've really what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Jeremy with me with a camera so we can call it work. Yeah. So I got Jeremy to give me some guidance on
don't shoot that one.
What I should be shooting, what I shouldn't be shooting.
Yeah. Help some judging and some decision making there for sure. I've seen some baby giants this year. I mean, 3-year-old deer that just you would never believe the amount of horn growth that some of those deer put on this year with the quality feed and everything else. So it could be. You get a 5, 6, 7 year age class deer, and who knows what you might be seeing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow any of the antelope hunters around here, or some of the guides, Pronghorn Guide Service, we follow those guys.
Did you see the 90 plus they just killed?
Yeah, in Wyoming,
in Wyoming, in a unit that's not produced a buck like that.
That's a direct correlation to the nice one, because they put their horns on in the winter, right?
100%.
Easy winter, big spring.
Yeah.
So here's a unit that traditionally isn't even close to the trophy potential.
Maybe produces a couple 80-inch goats every year,
and it blows up a 90. It's like wow, and he was like
plus.
He had everything, right? Like mass top to bottom.
It didn't even look big because it was just so scaled up, right? It's got just the mass everywhere. Just like take like a nice 70-inch goat and just scale it up like 1.5 times, and that was basically
not to talk too much about them, but they posted it first, right, on the hoof. Yeah. And said, and they do a good job of asking everybody, right?
Yeah, right.
There was some 60-inch guesses, like
really.
It was just so symmetrical, It
just looked like an average Wyoming goat. I mean, it really did. When I first looked, without like starting to take things apart, right? I first looked, and it's like it was just an average goat. I probably didn't call it in the 80s.
You just need another goat next to him.
Well,
that's what they did.
That's what they did. Yeah. The second picture was it next to an 81 or 82-inch goat, and it made it look like a 60-inch goat. It was crazy. It was just giant. Anyway, I think we're going to see that in Wyoming. I haven't seen too many big bulls yet, but
either.
It's pretty early though. Yeah. The archery hunters, they're just starting to get back, and so the potential's there. But
and maybe it impacts different animals differently. Maybe those elk are higher or lower in the spring or something like that, and changes. Maybe the deer and the antelope feed is more impacted by the wet spring than the elk or something like that.
Yeah, because we tend to kind of just blanket it, right? It's like good spring, everything's going to be good, light winter,
But it is still too early to see. So, there might be a few giants hanging out.
It's like black bear hunting this spring. because we had a lot of snow during the black bear season. I felt like I was seeing a lot of elk that were just kind of like hung up waiting to go higher, but they just keep getting dumped on with snow.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost to the point where I was kind of worried about some of the calves because some of the areas they've been hanging in all of a sudden had 3 feet of snow on them.
Sure.
Right when the calves dropped.
Yeah.
So I remember going back in there like a week later, and seeing some calves and thinking, okay, well, that's a good thing because I was kind of worried about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, should we wrap this one up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Another great discussion.
Yeah.
For sure.
That was fun.
All right.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.